I can't think of a single roller coaster opening this year in the United States that isn't more hyped than Stardust Racers. Coaster nerds like myself have been watching the construction progress over the past few years and combing through every piece of information we can get our hands on about this illustrious project. The ride, which in many ways is the spiritual successor to the popular yet defunct Dueling Dragons that opened with Islands of Adventure back in 1999. A part of the all-new Epic Universe, which is a brand new Universal theme park in Orlando, Florida, Stardust Racers is a racing/dueling multi-launch roller coaster by Mack Rides. I say roller coaster, but in fact, this is roller coasters, as the ride consists of two separate roller coasters that have very similar layouts with minor differences. The ride stats, which are the same for either the green or yellow side, include a height of 133 feet, 5,000 feet of track, 62 mph top speed, including 2 launches, which actually kind of feels like 4, but we'll talk about that later, and 1 inversion. Before we continue with this review, please do me a favor by clicking on that like button. Newcomers to my channel that love everything roller coasters, be sure to subscribe. Presentation. Located in the Celestial Park, Stardust Racers makes a splashy appearance with its bold open-faced station staring right towards the center of the park. The first thing that popped into my mind as I approached the queue was, surprisingly, Disney. The aesthetics of the ride was giving me strong Tomorrowland vibes, and I was loving every minute of it. The queue isn't much, but the station is somewhat of an art piece. The roller coaster travels through the entire structure that has this giant laser-type object floating above where riders will load and unload the trains. When the trains leave the station, they perform a quick 180-degree turn and travel underneath the station to the back. The story, from what I could gather, is that the residents of Celestial Park have figured out how to capture comets, now allowing their guests the opportunity to ride them. The ride layout plays a lot into presentation, with each train mimicking the sensation of chasing comets. This roller coaster really comes alive at night, which is arguably the best time to experience this attraction as the trains light up, creating a spectacular trace effect. Along with a lighting package on the trains, the roller coasters also have onboard audio, but outside of the 2 launches with their sound effects, I can't recall what sound or music was being played. Now, during the day, once you leave the station area, the ride is basically built over a flat, boring piece of property. There is minimal foliage and 0 theming throughout the layout. With that said though, the theming really is the train's track design and interactions you will have with the opposing train. The 2 roller coasters race each other for the majority of the ride, with a couple crossover moments that play into that dueling aspect. If I judged the theming during the day, I would knock down the score a couple points because how bland majority of the land is surrounding the attraction. The backstage areas of Isle of Berk are clearly visible, but I wonder as the trees grow in, this problem will be eliminated. At night though, I would bump this up to a perfect 10. I didn't have the opportunity to ride this in complete dark because the park closed at 8, but just by judging it from dusk, this will be a stellar night ride. I guess my medium score brings us to a near perfect 9 rating. Ride intensity. Airtime lovers are going to be ecstatic because Stardust Racers has some of the strongest ejector moments on any roller coaster. The first half of the ride is basically ejector airtime. So the coaster starts off by performing a slow crawl out of the station into a winding 180-degree turn, sending you back underneath the structure. Both trains will now enter the first launch, which for a coaster by Mack Rides surprised me greatly. The launch has a nice kick, but then mellows out for a couple seconds before unleashing another kick that sends you right into that top hat. That second punch almost feels like a different launch, and I did not see it coming. The first element immediately shows you this coaster means business. There are strong positive G-forces in the climb, ejector airtime at the top, and another dose of strong positive G-forces at the bottom. The next element is not as extreme, but still offers good airtime. The ride now enters a series of bunny hills. This is where the 2 coasters will stray slightly in their layout. The yellow side has more draw fallen out airtime hills, while the green one hits you with a fast speed hill. The coaster splits over the station and enters a diving banked turn, crossing right in front of each other. This is a dueling moment that is separated by a wall. Obviously, Universal wasn't going to make the same mistakes from dueling dragons and created barriers when they needed to prevent flying objects from hitting the opposing train. Now, obviously, with their metal detectors in play, this is really not going to be a problem, but they're not going to take any chance. After the turnaround, the two sides meet up again to enter the second launch. Just like the first one, this one has a nice kick at the start, and near the end of the launch is where the trains are balanced out. The second part of that launch kicks in, sending you into the craziest and or most iconic element of the ride. The celestial spin, or is it the celestial roll, basically is like two interlocking 0G rolls, and the elements look and feels like it shouldn't be possible. It plays with the mind in a way. Once you ride it, you kind of understand how it works, but watching it in action is pretty mesmerizing. Now that you completed the one and only inversion of the ride, the coaster really mellows out in a way, performing high-speed bank turns with each side flying over or under the other train. Now, there is another turnaround that delivers a strong dose of positive G-forces before sending you on your way back toward the brake run. The ride finishes strong with two more ejector airtime moments before slowing down into the station. I counted about 12 moments of airtime, and that seems to be pretty consistent with both sides. Basically on par with some of the craziest RMCs in the country. In a lot of ways, I left this ride thinking more about Rocky Mountain construction than Intamin or Mack Rides. This manufacturer really found a way on how to make this coaster stand out from their previous endeavors. When you take into consideration the powerful launch, gobs of ejector airtime, strong positive G moments, including that turnaround near the end of the ride, which caused me to gray out, by the way, I can't think of a reason why this coaster doesn't deserve a 10 rating in ride intensity. Fun factor. There's no denying that Stardust Racers is a fun roller coaster. Every guest was smiling, laughing, and cheering as the train returned to the station. The ride is long, full of quality moments that make this a well worth it wait. Speaking of the wait time, this is where I thought Stardust Racers would really shine, but instead, I was a little surprised with their lag in their dispatch times. Each ride cycle was averaging about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, it's really hard to judge their operations, especially during a preview event. From what I hear, this ride is designed to operate with 4 trains on each side. During my visit, there were only 2 trains on each side. The ride utilizes loading and unloading stations. With a simple lap bar and no seatbelt, this process should be a breeze once the team finds their footing. If or when this coaster gets up to full capacity, I expect this ride to be a beast, eating up the crowds. My estimates right now put its hourly capacity at 1,000 riders, but don't be surprised in a couple months or less to see that number double or go higher. Another thing to note about capacity, let's talk about the queue. After the lockers and metal detectors, this is where the ride splits into 3 lanes. You have the green, yellow, and single rider line. I'm curious how well the single rider line will work on busy days because it was crawling during my visit. I was easily moving faster through the regular queue as I watched the single riders come to a standstill. Be it though, it will be more efficient when the line is maxed out. The line after the lockers seems to average about 20 minutes. This is also where those who are parent swapping will split and wait. Just take that into consideration that even when this coaster is pushing a 20-minute wait, you both will be basically waiting that full time. Alright, enough of the technical jargon and back to the ride. Stardust Racers is an excellent roller coaster exceeding my expectations in airtime and intensity. Even with its lack of theming, there's still enough here to make this a perfect 10 rating in the fun factor. Originality. Racing roller coasters are nothing new. They have been around for over 100 years, but include 2 launches, tons of interactions, a brand new element, with a hefty ride time. Stardust Racers is truly a breath of fresh air into the roller coaster market. There's so many little details that I love, like the sound effects during the launches. The way the coasters play with each other makes me think of Mario Galaxy of all things. I just love watching this roller coaster in action and look forward to riding again at night. The Celestial roll is something truly unique. I know it's just two 0G rolls, but the way they play with the opposing train makes this something out of this world. Yes, that was a pun, by the way. Originality earns an easy 10 rating. Ride Smoothness. Roller coasters from Mack Rides have never really been butter smooth. Their transitions are fine, but the trains seem to get this rattle that pops up randomly throughout the ride. Being that there are no over-the-shoulder restraints, this slight rattle isn't a problem, and you most likely forget about it after exiting the ride. Your mind is going to be focusing on those powerful ejector airtime hills, and sometimes maybe a little too intense if that's even a thing. Those bunny hills remind me of the ending of Air Force One or Steel Vengeance. Short bursts of ejector airtime that, if you were to marathon, might make your thighs cry out for a breather. Ride Smoothness gets a near perfect 9 rating. Okay, the final tally comes to 9.6, which is a fantastic rating. This coaster is clearly doing many, if nearly all things correct, and with some minor tweaks, I could see this coaster walking away with a perfect score. Stardust Racers is a fun, forceful, and provide a long experience that demands to be ridden multiple times. If the day allowed, I would love to marathon this coaster, however that wasn't really a possibility when visiting a brand new park for the first time. There is so much to check out at Epic Universe, but even still I see Stardust Racers being one of their headlining attractions for many years to come. My personal score is going to be about the same at 9.5. I would love to give this a perfect 10, quite possibly if I can experience the ride at night, but I do have a couple criticisms, if I may. First is the airtime. I love airtime, don't get me wrong, but with each and every moment of airtime starting to feel like the last element, it started to get a little repetitive. Next, there is a slight drop in quality from the first half of the ride to the second third of the ride. After the celestial spin, the ride, though still forceful, becomes less memorable. Not to say this final ending isn't good, because it's still better than most coasters. I guess this is just where I hear the coaster really shines at night, so that might be the missing factor for me. Also, there is the rattle, but again, not really much of a problem, but I've never also been a huge fan of the restraints on these trains from Mack Rides. They're nothing bad, I guess it just comes down to preference. Regardless though, these criticisms are minor and will not deter anyone from riding or holding this coaster back from being one of the best in the world. Right now, I would probably consider this to be a top 10 coaster, definitely top 20. Well, that's going to conclude my review of Stardust Racers. Until next time, this is Extreme Thrills.